life experiences with Raw, and your Trauma Talks presents Therapeutic Thursdays, where we embark on an incredible journey where real life stories intersect with healing and hope. From the visionary minds behind Trauma Talk Thursdays, we present a transformative new series designed to help you face your experiences with courage and compassion. Join us as Dr. Shirley Regina Pierre Robertson, a dedicated faith-based mental health advocate, lead us into a weekly interactive session that beautifully integrates mental health and spirituality. Therapeutic Thursdays is not just about addressing trauma, it's about rewriting your narrative and rebuilding a positive, compassionate self-image. In this sacred space, we will explore the power of acceptance, turning our struggles into stepping stones for growth. Together, we'll uncover the strength within ourselves, learn from our past, and foster a community where healing thrives. So, let's all gather our friends and family and tune in tonight and every Thursday as we ignite a conversation around mental health and spirituality, helping each other to rise above challenges and thrive. Let's embrace our life experiences together. Welcome to the stage, Dr. Shirley Regina Pierre Robertson.
Hello, hello to everyone. Good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you are in the global village. I want to say shalom. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for joining us. We're here again on another Thursday evening for Therapeutic Thursdays. And one thing I want you to know is that Therapeutic Thursday would not be what it is, who it is, without your presence. So I really look forward to you being on with us tonight. And we're going to have a really informative, interactive conversation tonight. I'm hoping that you will feel the need to share your thoughts, share what's going on with you at this time as we begin the process of looking at life through some of the current turbulences that we're going through right now. Well, tonight, Ingrid McNear Campbell, would not be able to be with us tonight. We will do our best to get her on another night. But for tonight, we have Brittany Purr with us. And for many of you, for those of you who know Brittany, you know about her, the things that she does, who she is, and what has made her to be the person that she is. Indeed, why it is that she is who she is. So there's so much for us to learn from her and what she does at Obscorum. But, rather than me trying to tell you about who Brittany is, I will let her introduce herself and tell you who she is. Remember now that this platform, Therapeutic Thursdays, it is a safe space and a safe place where we talk about our truths, remove our mask, and be our authentic self. So Brittany is going to come to us tonight, and I see people are already happy and excited because Brittany is here tonight. So without any further ado, let me introduce to those of you who know her and those who are yet to know who Brittany is. You're going to you'll be in for a wonderful treat tonight with Brittany. So can we have Brittany on with us tonight? Thank you so much.
Hello, hello. Thank
Oh,
you for having me today.
oh, it's awesome, awesome, wonderful
Mhm.
to have you. How are you?
Yeah. Uh, I am safe and doing all right. But we'll dive in on other circumstances that are happening in my local area when we
Okay,
get to it. So,
all right. Well, can you introduce yourself to the audience? Not
yeah.
everybody knows who you are. Let us know who this
Mhm.
wonderful person we call Brittany Purr is. So come on, let's hear.
So, my name is Brittany Purr. I am an autodidact, which means I'm self-taught, and a polymath. So I know a broad range of different fields of information, and I combine that with empathic abilities and understanding knowledge on behavior to support people in a variety of different ways, mostly emotional support, overcoming different situations, and finding their path through to personal empowerment. And that's kind of me, what I do in a nutshell. I do live in Los Angeles,
Wow,
and yeah, we'll get to that stuff in a little
I
bit.
need to get to that stuff.
Mhm.
So tell us, Brittany, you've given us quite a portfolio of
Mhm.
who you are and the
Yeah.
things that you do. And that in itself is telling us, introducing us to an awesome, awesome person. So
Mhm.
tell me the based on what you just shared with us, who or what would be the issues going on with someone that they would want to call Brittany?
Basically, I support people at that sweet spot of where they're working through their trauma or they've made a choice to work through their trauma or an experience or a situation, and they want to start doing life on their terms
Mhm,
instead of life taking its toll on them or letting themselves be a doormat. They want to shift that, but in a healthy way. Because some people do what I call, which is swinging the pendulum, where they go hard and fast in the opposite direction and do more harm than good, which once again cycles back on them as they're hurting people. So I help people to find that balance into working through the emotional backlog without judgment,
mhm,
finding their purpose, their divine purpose,
mhm,
discovering who they authentically are, discovering their values so that they can use that as a guidance system to navigate where it is that they want to go. And then ultimately, after all of that comes into play, then they can begin to set their goals and navigate their way towards it. And having those primers of self discovery, needing to do the work, those are kind of the people that I gravitate towards, those who know that they're resilient and are ready to
mhm,
take the next step on building their lives.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Now, as I hear you say that, and for the I haven't known you for a long time,
Mhm.
but you come across to me as a very resilient. I like to put brilliant with resilient. A very brilliant and resilient person. But and I hear what you say
Mhm.
in terms of people are coming because they want to take care of the business of themselves first
Well,
before
it's
they
it's
go ahead.
know thyself,
It's
because if
right.
you don't know yourself,
Mhm,
how are
mhm.
you going to get anywhere? It's just like churning wheels in mud.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And that's so important, because as I was
Mhm.
saying last week, that it seems the theme for this year is about being focused on you, getting to
Mhm.
know you. So doing that business of getting to know who you are before you decide to branch off and achieve your goals and so on.
Mhm.
But there had to have been a reason, Brittany, for you to go in this direction. Could you share with us what brought you to the place where you felt that you needed to do work on you in order to achieve the goals that you had in mind?
Yes, I grew up in a haunted household with family members that ultimately kind of ignored me. Or if I needed support, I would be punished for that. So I didn't really have anywhere to turn or anybody to go to. Couldn't talk about these things that were happening in the household, so just kind of had to keep it bottled up. If I was struggling with something, I had to figure it out on my own. And so it kind of fostered an abandonment issue, kind of fostered a lot of that y- resilient dynamic to begin with. It's like, you're on your own, take care of it type of thing. And so I am thankful for that. Not too thankful for the abandonment issues that came with that.
Mhm,
But it's been a lifelong path of discovery, because from growing up in that space with the personality types, uh, got myself into a marriage, which I thought I was escaping that space, but ran straight back into another one that ended up being more detrimental, or seemed more detrimental.
mhm,
And instead of letting that dictate my life, it became through the divorce process, which was absolutely traumatizing and terrible in its own right. But it became to the point where I don't want to do that over again. I've learned this lesson, but
mhm,
what's the lessons that I actually learned?
mhm,
Because if I throw up a wall, that's just another prison sentence,
mhm.
another situation,
Yes.
same thing, right? So really, it came to, I don't really know myself. I've never kind of lived on my own at that point.
Mhm,
So it's been a journey of self-discovery,
mhm,
of me really revealing myself, revealing my strengths, revealing my purpose, and dialing in on that. Because, as an autodidact and a polymath, as I explained before, an autodidact is a person who's self-taught. So I love to learn and explore new and very diverse things. And a
mhm,
polymath is a person with a very broad knowledge in different fields.
mhm,
And how do you dial into that in a world where you're told, focus on one thing, you can only do one thing? And I'm like, that I would prefer to gouge my eyes out with a spoon instead of doing that. Like, that is the worst thing. That is a straight shot to depression for me, because my enjoyment comes from learning and exploring and then incorporating this knowledge into a beautiful framework or artwork, or supporting others and empathizing, using that in
mhm,
conjunction with the faculties of empathy to help people out, to share this knowledge, this wisdom, to create a better way of being in the world for people. And as I've done this journey, it's been amazing what I've discovered, not only about myself, but about how I can stand up to create a better way of being in the world.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
So,
So I hear you
mhm,
saying that because of your journey, because
mhm,
of what you had to experience, that's where your empathy comes from. So rather than look at condemnation, condemning, you have more compassion, more
mhm,
empathy for a person, because you now, having been there, understands what it is, You don't know everything, but you can be empathetic to someone's struggles because you've been there, done that.
Mhm. Yep.
You know, so when you approach a client, or you approach a relationship, or in whatever capacity that relationship is in, you
Mhm.
approach it, would you say, with that spirit of empathy for the person?
It's kind of more multifaceted than that.
Mhm,
So on one aspect, yes, it's empathy, it's seeing what their needs are, understanding the situation when it comes to a client. And then that aspect is I want to meet someone where they're at and support them on getting to where they want to be.
mhm,
When it comes to a relationship, that's a different scenario because I don't want to be coaching
mhm,
a partner, a friend, or spouse unless that's been agreed upon within the relationship, and like there's mutuality within that. Like there needs to be that reciprocal mutuality
mhm.
within a friendship. Within a romantic relationship, treating a romantic relationship as a client relationship is a slippery slope.
Yes, yes.
That is a one way to get to a almost like a power paradigm,
Mhm,
and that doesn't it creates more challenges, so I don't want to necessarily bring those dynamics in there, but obviously within love, compassion
like a
is
codependency. You don't want that.
no,
See.
no. And it's like that compassion and that ability to kind of understand that if I'm with someone romantically, I am going to hold myself accountable to letting them be in their leadership,
Mhm, mhm,
because
mhm,
that's more of like an equal yoking of
mhm,
partners. And that's something that I kind of look for
mhm,
when I'm out on dates. I'm like, okay, am I doing too much coaching? Am I getting sucked into the coaching? Okay, this person's probably not the best one for me because I don't want to be a nag. I want to trust in this person's leadership. And then I have my needs to feel safe, to have that sense of security, to have that sense that someone also interchangeably has my back, which I didn't have in the marriage that I was in. It
mhm,
was me being fully in supporter mode
mhm.
and getting verbally backlashed against for not being enough. And that was just not a healthy cycle at all.
Good.
So,
I hear you. I hear you.
mhm,
Now, I want to go back to where we first started off,
mhm,
because many of us, I know for myself that I grew up in an era where you weren't allowed to ask too many questions.
mhm,
You know, you it was an era in which children were seen and not heard. So there were boundaries, and knew where that those boundaries were, the
mhm,
boundaries that were laid. Sometimes the boundaries were spoken, and other times it was an assumption.
mhm,
Sometimes it was learned, because from what you were seeing going on in the family, you learned when to speak and when not to speak,
mhm,
what was safe and what was not safe. So I remember being told, children should be seen and not heard. So many of us grew up in that era. That has that had a profound toll on us
mhm,
when it came to even in our adult years. So I'm looking at those people who would come to you now. Look, in our adult years now, there's that difficulty we experience about really speaking what our truth is, because we we have learned these learned behaviors,
Mhm.
how about who you are and what you should and should not say. Whereas sometimes now you see, uh, whether it's on the TV or what, children can confront parents and can
Mhm.
ask questions, and you say, wow, my time, I couldn't do those things. I
Mhm.
couldn't do those things at all. So we 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 hide those feelings in those thoughts that come as a result of what we've been through, the trauma, because that is traumatic in itself. You know, you
Mhm.
can't verbalize, and you can be you can be present and yet you're abandoned.
Yep.
Abandoned in your in the very presence of the people that
Mhm.
are expected to protect you, and so on.
Yeah. And then that cycles into abandoning the self. And that's what I ended up experiencing. And I was like, I don't really know myself at the point dealing with the divorce. And so that's, an aspect of kind of what kicked off the self discovery aspect and developing specific tools to help people in those sites of sort of similar situations, emotional, psychological abuse, dealing with those who have narcissistic tendencies, to really begin to claim who they are, build that self trust, and understand who they're meant to be, and also let them know that it's okay to speak up. It's okay to ask for support. Even when there's major things going on in the world, you are still valuable enough for support. So, for example, there's these big major fires happening in LA. I'm very thankful to be safe with power on right now by the grace of God. Like, I am very thankful and grateful to be kind of in the eye of the storm, so to speak. But then I have a friend who's struggling up north, and they don't feel like they can speak up about their situations because there's this big catastrophe that is looming over them. And my words for that individual was like, your problems are just as valuable. And it's okay to focus on your area, on what you need to focus on your loved ones, on your community, and most of all, on yourself, so that you can put on your oxygen mask first and then step in to support others. Don't feel bad about handling what you can handle and what you need to handle, which is what's in your immediate vicinity to handle.
Mhm.
And that is crucial, because if you can't handle the things going on that are right in front of your face, how are you going to be valuable to anybody else if you're collapsing and they now have to save you?
Mhm.
Please focus on what you can handle. Focus on, if you're struggling for money right now and you're like, I can't do any financial thing, and you're not local to Los Angeles where all of this is happening, don't even worry about Los Angeles right now.
Mhm.
Worry about what you have going on. And then later on down the line, there's still going to be people that need support out here. Once you have enough financial wherewithal,
Mhm.
or if you have resources that you can send on down, go ahead and do that.
Mhm.
But don't be in other people's business when you have so much going on in your immediate sphere of influence. And that is a healthy way of establishing boundaries. because boundaries aren't things that we put on someone else and expect them to uphold a boundary that we've established. We can uphold only our own boundaries. We can only control ourselves
Mhm.
and what we can control within our own personal environment that is not being impended by anybody else or any other disasters. It really comes down to, like, if I set a boundary of I'm not going to listen to those trying to put politics on this situation that's happening in Los Angeles, I will uphold that boundary and I will unfollow people or block people or help to curate my algorithm so that I'm dealing with people that are actually trying to get crucial information, helpful information, and ultimately supporting my local area and my unique situation. So that's how we establish boundaries. And for me, working with people who are empaths or highly empathetic or highly sensitive, I think that is the strongest discovery and the most powerful thing to do of going, hey, you have your own struggles. That's okay. That is just as valid as the struggles of people caught up in wherever things are happening. But you've got to be able to focus on yourself and take care of yourself,
Mhm.
or else you're useless to everyone else.
Mhm. 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 Are you finding, in terms of the mental
Mhm.
toll, that the emotional toll that these fires, or whether it's literal fires, or the fires of of life and its
Mhm.
journeys that we're caught up with? How do you deal with persons who are feeling helpless and hopeless, and and wanting
Mhm.
to give up and say, this is just too much. I
Yeah,
can't take anymore. It's too much."
it's really bringing them back to what matters, and that is you're alive, you're safe, and that's not a coincidence, right? We've all been through things in our past, and it's remembering that. It's remembering, okay, I've gotten through this. I can get through this too. It's also looking towards those who have been through things like this, looking for those who are supporting, for those who have your back, for those who have resources or resource lists who are willing to get you connected. And for a lot of people right now, I think people are still in the shock of it all. Like for me personally, once again, I'm thankfully, by the grace of God, in a safe area. But where my daughter was conceived, completely gone. My daughter was just at a friend's house on Saturday, it's gone. And that's a lot. And I don't think people are really at that point of processing because it's still a survival state. There's still fires happening right now. A lot of us within the community are trying to figure out ways of how we can support. And right now, for me personally, I've reached out to a few people. I know that a lot of people are overloaded. So I'm sitting here just getting information out as much as possible. Like that's kind of what I can do right now. And I can't feel bad for not doing more. But really, I don't think things have really hit the fan for people processing this yet. And for those who are in safe spaces, all I can say is step up, reach out to people. That's the first crucial step. Don't expect people to reach out to you. You need to reach out to people that you know, make a list of people that you know,
Mhm.
and start reaching out.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because I mean, people in this situation, they've lost everything. How do you process that? Most people can't even empathize with that at this point.
Mhm.
Like I've known people who have had their houses burned down. As a matter of fact, an old apartment complex that I lived in up until 2020 burned down last year, and I've been helping out the residents of that. Even one of them had to be evacuated again last night. So it's showing up for people as much as possible. And it takes a while. It takes months for things to really hit to the point where people really kind of hit that downward slope. Like right now, yeah, it's like, get through this. It's all shocking. It's all like, it is that shell shock right now. But starting this weekend, next week, all hands on deck for anybody dealing with mental health. And that seems to be kind of the thing that ends up being on the back burner a little bit with a lot of organizations. So with the experience of my old community, my old neighbors who lost their property in Hollywood last year, the Red Cross came in, they did what they could, and then it was like suddenly there's a shock of like, okay, we need to close the shelter, and they're like, where do we go? What do we do? There wasn't really anybody to really step up and say, hey, here's mental health services, reach out to this, get connected with the therapist here, like that fell by the wayside. And I was kind of very shocked by that and kind of had to step up and be like, okay, let me support you guys with, these different areas that I can support. Reach out to me if you need support in this, that sort of thing. So it's a very trepidatious thing to navigate. And it still needs to be navigated with the most tactile diplomacy possible to help people understand that there is a way through, that there is that space to have gratitude and really cultivate it, as challenging as it is. And the first thing that I support people in doing is clearing the backlog, and that is like cry, scream into a pillow, punch a pillow, yell, do what you need to do to clear that emotion. I don't care if you're crying for a month straight, hydrate, but just know that crying is literally clearing out stress hormones from your body. There is no judgment that needs to be put on that. It is okay to cry. Even in the scripture, there was an intentional verse put in there, which is the shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. It is that important to cry and to have your emotions. And as you were saying, that's the first thing that people were taught to shut down, be seen and not heard. You need to cry. You need to have your emotions. Then the next step, get that sleep, because once you cry it out, you're going to get the best sleep you've ever had. Cry some more. Scream, yell into a pillow some more. Take a deep breath, and then remind yourself you're alive. And then in the worst of times, take in that deep breath and say, I'm thankful to just breathe right now. Even if it's a choking breath, you're still alive. You're still breathing. And then take that next step. All right, I'm thankful I have whatever you have with you right now. Yes. And then that next step, I'm thankful that I have resources available, whether you take them up or not, whether they're the best or even just really sloppy resources, still be thankful for at least that. Then the next step with the next resource, and then the next step. And then what comes through from this process? What comes through from now these new relationships that you've created and that you've formed through this process? Because this, as horrific as it is, I am watching so many people from different corners of this community that I was like, oh, I had no idea that this content creator was in Los Angeles, and yet we've been connected, and now we're a little more connected as we're working in tandem and supporting each other and sharing information forward and making sure that we're supporting our friends, our families, our communities within this area that need support right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's taking those steps and those baby steps and just, first let that emotion flow, get into a safe space, let it flow, and then the next step, and then the next, and the next, into gratitude and through the rebuilding process.
Mhm. Mhm. At this juncture, um, a lot of what we see, I'm not sure if you're seeing a lot of that right now, but there's that fear of the unknown,
Mhm,
fear of the unknown, and this is where you tend to see some who don't understand the emotional turmoil would say,
mhm,
"This is so unlike this person. Why are you behaving so hysterical?" And but there's that fear. There's it's. I mean, grief would come in after, but that fear of the
mhm,
unknown, of I'm losing everything. What's I work so hard to build this, and where am I going to go? What's going to happen to me? Those are
mhm,
the thoughts that, as you said, you're dealing with right now. But it's
mhm,
amazing that in the midst of it, how we can come together as a people. At that
mhm,
time, it's not a black, a white, a brown a issue. It's a humanitarian issue. It's a tragedy. And the fire doesn't distinguish whose house it's going to burn. It
Nope.
does not. And it's amazing, as I said, at this time that we can embrace each other and hold on to each other and cry on each other's shoulders
Mhm,
because we're in it together.
yep,
We're in it together, you know.
exactly.
And
And yeah, so that fight, the fear response, fight,
mhm,
flight,
mhm,
freeze, fawn. It's
mhm,
all four of those aspects. So, you'll see people in these different spaces. Freeze, I feel like, is kind of the more challenging aspects to deal with. Um, Yet, what really does break my heart and really gets me upset is seeing people put the political spin on it,
mhm,
even people that are local, trying to do the blame, shame, shoulda, woulda, coulda game. And it's like, no, we need all hands on deck right now to get people supported, to move through this together.
mhm,
And I'm going to be very clear, let go of the people that are trying to do the blame, shame, political lint. They are not, they're showing who they really are. And for me, I give them the chance where I do the accountability route where I'm like, this is not cool. This is not okay. Right now is the time for us to step up and put in whatever efforts we can to support people in our community. And if people are not willing to do that, you you can't hold them to it. Like, it's just better to let those guys go and focus on what really matters. And
mhm,
eventually, sometimes people will come around, but sometimes it ends up creating more problems along the line.
mhm,
And, ultimately, the best thing to do during this time as well
mhm,
is to ask if you're acting out of a place that's going to help you sleep well at night. Because if you're being catty, if you're doing well, I'm going to blame this, right now is not the time for it. Let the
mhm,
investigations happen.
mhm, mhm,
Live your life as best as you can. Shelters are not fun places.
Mhm.
They're not.
Mhm.
So do the best with what you have
Mhm.
and come together to build a way through together, because it's all hands on deck right now for the local people of Los Angeles.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, yeah.
And there's some profound lessons that we learn, some of which you've already mentioned,
Mhm.
uh, and the flexibility. At times, when we get in this, I call it like psychological turbulence.
Mhm.
That's because your mind, your thoughts are all over the place, and
Yeah.
but this is a time where, as I said, we need each other more than ever.
Mhm.
And this is a life and death situation if
Yes.
if we're not careful. And somewhere along the line, we have to look at the possibility of a shift,
Mhm.
because when things happen in life that we did not budget for, we did not prepare. 'Cause who prepares for your neighborhood being burnt to the ground, your home being burnt, your neighbor, you know, who prepares for that? But when that happens, and if it happens, to be at the place where you look, you're gonna cry at the losses and so, but then you still have to, as you said, I'm alive and there is hope and I can start all over again.
Mhm.
And these are the things like for people like yourself, um, trying to give people hope and the faith to believe that all is not lost. It may seem as if all is lost for the moment because people lose things that are so dear to them and precious
Mhm.
to them, and lives may be lost in the process. But when we stop and look back at what has happened, and as you said, I'm alive, I'm breathing, there is hope. There is hope. And that's
Mhm.
where you, people like yourself, would come in to give that semblance of hope that you can start again.
Mhm.
It's even using again your story, even though it was in a different context, but
Mhm.
in reality, it's like starting all over, starting anew, moving from that place of trauma where all these emotions were overwhelming for you, but between leaving there to get married, there were decisions you had to make about
Mhm.
your life
Yep.
and how you would let go, what you had to let go before
Mhm.
you moved ahead. So
Yep.
you had an action plan, you had a
Mm,
strategy, did you?
not really. Um, no, so for me, it's like a lot of the process with the divorce was getting through by the skin of my teeth. Like, some aspects of it were definitely like the letting go process in a lot of ways, a lot of sacrifices, a lot of, like, I don't even know how I was able to get through some situations, but it was more focused on, let's get through this. All
Mhm.
right, let's get through this. Okay, let's get through this. Take that self care break, breathe, emote, get those emotions out, process. Okay, next step. Let's get through this. Oh, here's another hurdle. Okay, same process again. Breathe, emote, emote. Start with emoting first. Breathe, and then okay, I've gotten through this before. Now I can get through this. It's like taking those steps back to do that running leap over that hurdle because you need that velocity to get over. And if you don't reflect on, okay, I've gotten through something like this before, something that's, akin or close to that, as close as possible, right? A harrowing situation, then you can rely on your strength and your knowledge of, okay, I can navigate this. And taking those baby steps, even though I didn't have that strategy at the time that I did it, this is kind of what came through from me being in that survival mode. Because when you're in survival mode, you're not in a space to really be strategic, but just take those baby steps and then be open to what opens up for you. Uh, Sometimes people like to really dig in their heels and have things look in a specific way. And I'm going to share this very familiar story that so many pastors love to tell, where there's a person in a flood and they prayed to God and they're like, God, save me. And then, people on a boat come by and they're like, hey, come on, get on our boat. We're getting out of here. And the person's like, no, God is going to save me. Go, God is going to save me. So they're like, okay, and go off. Next, a helicopter comes. They're like, come on, we're here to rescue you. Let's get you out of here. And the person's like, no. God's going to save me. God's got this. And then the person saying that ultimately dies. They're at the pearly gates and they go, God, why didn't you save me? God goes, I sent a boat. I sent a helicopter. So some people will dig their heels in like that and not realize that there's opportunities. And so you have to be really open to the opportunities that present themselves. Like if you are in a shelter with different people, form those friendships rather than forming a hard line of, I need my personal space. Yes, sometimes you will get overwhelmed, especially if you're an introvert. There's a lot of resources available, like Airbnb is giving out like free places to stay. They are covering the cost of that. But really do your best to find community in the midst of this that will be your ride or dies in the ultimate outcome, because you're supporting each other, you're helping each other, you're helping community. Like you're creating value and a purpose for you. And those relationships where you build it on value and purpose, those relationships that are formed out of what community really used to be like, where if you see a downed branch in the street, you go ahead and start cutting up that branch, put it to the side so it's out of the roadway so that your people in your community can access the road. Like you don't wait for workers to do it. You step up if you know you have the tools and the ability to deal with the situation. And so many people have lost these aspects and these understandings of community, but right now is the perfect time to relearn those aspects by being kind of forced into the situation. But don't see it as being forced. See it as an opportunity in any way, shape, or form that you can. An opportunity to be valuable, an opportunity to connect with people, an opportunity to make amazing things happen out of the worst of the situations and the worst of the scenario. But remember first, you get to have your emotions. You get to have your emotions and then get through them. Because the more that you give yourself the ability to like, I'm just going to let it all out. And then you can be able to function a little better and not have, that nagging in the back of your head, or not have that hormonal overload of like cortisol and whatever the stress hormone cocktail that's, just festering there. It really does fester in our bodies.
Mhm,
Even people that, have held in things for a very long time, the body still needs to actually process it through tears, through releasing these hormones in the way that it's designed to release these hormones.
mhm,
Like working with clients, like they will cry for a month straight to clear out all of that backlog if they haven't been adjusted to being able to have their emotions.
mhm,
So that's like one of the first things to do is like really have your emotions, get through the shock,
mhm,
do what you can that helps you through that. Like for me personally, I don't do shock. I really don't, which is kind of weird. And that's also it's part of a traumatic response, to be honest, but it's actually something that I use as a superpower. Being in major situations myself, I was in a major accident in 2017, and people were none the wiser that I was in that accident, even though, I could feel my body was in shock. I just kick into like a full logic mode in existence where I'm like, okay, let's handle the situation. Let's take care of people. Let's figure out what's going on. Let's, get the officers the information. That's how we do. I have some law enforcement background training, by the
mhm,
way. So that's, part of my skill set that I can rely on. But
mhm,
yeah, I didn't really do shock, but I was definitely severely injured and uh, had to go to the hospital. I took care of myself. And then the next day, like my body took over, was like, and we're shutting down. Boom.
mhm,
So it's giving yourself the space to make sure that you are doing the self care, or you will be completely like not even useful to yourself. And it just takes a toll on the whole situation. It makes things worse down the line rather than
mhm,
building up and making things a little easier and better on you later on when it becomes uh, more crucial to have a stronger foundation and a community around you to be able to interchangeably
yeah,
rely on.
mhm,
So
mhm.
yeah.
And even, where I still see us talking about that
Mhm.
mask, the mask of pretense that uh, this isn't happening to me. Uh, um, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm strong. I'm this. But inside, you're angry and you're frustrated. And what's going on here? I work, as I said before, I worked so hard for this. And now look what has
Mhm.
happened. And I appreciate so much what you've shared with us
Mhm.
tonight because you've given us some strategies, you've given us some action points that
Mhm.
some takeaways that we can use um, as we go forward. I particularly appreciate the point of community, the point of community, because no man is an island and we need each other and we never
Mhm.
know when we're going to need each other. So, as you said, why don't we go back to the old ways? Where I was thinking about that too. Sometimes a
Mhm.
neighbor would across the fence not even ask you if you're hungry, but give you a plate of food. Um,
Mhm.
they would share. We would share with each other, and it seems as if those days are gone. That instead of sharing with each other, we're scared of each other. We're scared of each other because all of the
Mhm.
things we're hearing and we're seeing. But we got to get
Mhm.
back. We got to get back to community. And it's in situations like these that's
Mhm.
happening in Los Angeles right now that lets you know, is bringing us back to what you're saying, that we cannot do this alone, that we
Yeah.
need each other. So this is an amazing conversation
Mhm.
that at a time like this you can share, and we can we can let people know that it's okay to be emotional in a time like this, because this is traumatic. It's
Hmm.
um, people are losing so much, and they fear. There's so much fear, and so much of our hormones are all over the place, and because of what's going on. Uh,
Hmm.
but you with all of your strength and tenacity and what you have had to endure way back then as a
Hmm.
child, that has brought you to where you are now, that you can look at life from a different lens, not telling yourself that what happened when I was a child didn't happen. And this is what we need to get through to people. Yes, it
Hmm.
happened. Yes, it took place. You can't ignore it. Okay, but what are some of the lessons that we can learn from this? How can we, instead of moving forward with a mask on and pretending that I'm
Hmm.
not hurting. I'm not still hurting. I didn't hurt from that experience. That we can be true to ourselves and say,
Hmm.
no, I did hurt. I need I need to fix some things, and I'm going to take care of it. So,
Hmm.
Brittany, can you share with us how can you how can people get in touch with you so that they can get the support and help they need from you?
Yes, I am all over the internet right now, mostly on TikTok at
Mhm.
Brittany Purr. You can see that uh, in my title right there.
Yes.
Um, so there's that. And I also wanted to kind of follow up with your statement about, removing that mask. I kind of got that visual of that meme where it's like the dogs with the coffee and a burning house.
Yes.
A lot of people are doing that right now, and check in with people, keep checking in with people, because eventually they'll be like, yeah, I do need support.
Mhm.
Because it's like the mask is that everything's fine.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
that idea. And you
Mhm.
might think a lot of people are kind of in that space, and when you keep checking in on them, like, be relentless, check in on them, daily, at least, to not
Mhm.
overwhelm them. That's at the very least.
Mhm.
Make sure that they're okay, and ask them what they need,
Mhm.
because it's like that mask will be on of like everything's fine, because they're still in shock, they're still going through this, and it's okay to not be okay.
Mhm. Yes.
So,
Yes.
reminding them that.
It's okay to
And
not be okay.
yeah,
Yes. Don't put that added pressure on yourself.
nope.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you. And there's been some really um, amazing responses, how you've helped people. It's not okay. It's okay not to be okay. And someone was saying they've been through this um, uh, about Sweetie Nori saying, this happened to me 2 weeks ago. And we're learning Asian support mental health. And this was informative. Thank you both. Um, we have to talk. So sad with all that's happening. All of these, we have to acknowledge it's happening, but we don't have to allow it to cause us to disintegrate and fall apart. Help is here, so let's take the help that we can get. So this is Dr. S. Regina Pierre Robertson with Therapeutic Thursdays, signing off one more time with you. Um, you can find us on New Dimensions and myself on all of the social media handles. We're there, and we're here, as I said, every week, every week, every week that we're here. So we look forward to seeing you next week.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that Ingrid Campbell would be available to be on with us as we had promised, but we got Brittany, and she did a fantastic job for us, and let us know. And perhaps this is what we needed to talk about tonight because of what's going on in Los Angeles and the
Mhm.
help that is needed. But don't forget to pray for each other. Don't
Mhm.
forget, as Brittany said, don't forget to pray for each other because we need each other. So
Mhm.
9 o'clock is going to be Trauma Talks with Ra. So I'm asking you to remember to sign on to be with him and Brittany as well. Okay? So bless you and see you next week.